Hi everyone, today I'm with Dumitru from Moldova, and today he'll be sharing his water story. I'm so excited to hear about both flooding and droughts and how your situation has been impacted recently. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Joey, for having me. Hey guys, my name is Dumitru. I'm from Chisinau, Moldova. Chisinau is the capital of the country, and I'll be going into further details about the context of Moldova and the water situation here. So basically, Moldova is surrounded by two big rivers. The first one being Prut, which is at the border with Romania, and the second one being Dnistru, which is at the border with Ukraine. And these rivers have a historical significance for the country and also agricultural significance, and they're very, very important. The issue with these rivers, it's a widely known issue, is that the water levels in these rivers is decreasing. Like every year, we've seen a decrease in the water levels here, and it's, as I've mentioned, it's a widely known issue. You could ask anyone here in Moldova, and they'd tell you the water levels are decreasing. Um, the other thing is nobody's really doing any like mass projects about it. It's not really being addressed. There has been some funding from the European Union, which we are really grateful for, but it's still an issue. Also, since I've mentioned the European Union, I'll go into further details explaining the geopolitical context of the country. So Moldova is surrounded by the European Union on one side, and then there's Russia on the other side, which is having the war in Ukraine right now. Um, the thing is, the European Union is trying to help us go through these problems, but Russia is constantly trying to um, stop this progress from happening by spreading their propaganda. Some of their propaganda includes stuff like the European Union will come and get your gas cars, and you'll all be driving electric vehicles. And uh, this really does not help the situation, since we know, um, yeah, we just uh, it's the thing of it is the climate change is like a really difficult um, concept to grasp for some people because it's not immediate change. It's not something that you directly may see. You may see its effects, but you might not know that it comes from climate change. So the thing is, Russia is spreading uh, this kind of message that the climate change and all this kind of stuff, even water issues, they're a European problem. They're a US problem. It's not a problem for Moldovans. And the population here is somewhat brainwashed. Not all of it, but still a decent part of it falls to the Russian propaganda. And uh, here we do have other issues. We have droughts, we have floods, all related to water. And they may seem like polar opposites, but when you look deeply into it, they're not that different. They're at the end of the day, they are water issues. Um, and yeah, that's about it.
Thank you so much for sharing. So
Yeah.
I think we've seen a similar trend in a lot of different countries that we've spoken to, where we have at the same time a low climate literacy. A lot of people don't have a general understanding of climate information, but that also has to do with little like environmental education standards. I love how you mentioned the misinformation. I think the reason why the world is so polarized right now is because there's a lot of misinformation about climate, especially when you mention like oh, Moldovan people don't need to worry about climate, especially since there are like much larger countries right around you. It might feel like, oh, okay, like I don't need to worry about climate. The thing I'm most interested from hearing about that is you mentioned how even though your own government isn't directly doing anything because you're surrounded or next to Russia and the European Union, you're experiencing some sort of like you absorb some of those ideologies as well and those thoughts. Can you explain a little bit more about how like because of like the location you are, not just between the rivers, but between two different ideologies, how that's impacted how some people think about water stress or climate change in general?
Yeah, definitely. So the European Union has, along the years since our independence in 1994, Moldova is a pretty new country because its independence was from the Soviet Union. So there is some kind of nostalgia uh, from the older generations. They feel nostalgic for the Russian times, I guess. And that's not helping. That's definitely not helping because the people helping us with our problems are the European Union. Uh, they come here, they give us funding for our problems. Uh, they fund our projects, but some people are still not grateful. They think they do it from some personal interest. They think of it as some kind of bribery, maybe. You know, that's at least how Russia's trying to paint the whole situation.
Thanks for sharing. I also wanted to hear more about how you mentioned there's a lot of extreme weather lately in Moldova. You said that there's more droughts, but also more flooding.
Yeah,
And I understand that like there is agriculture in Moldova and it relies heavily on the water table. If you have experience or know anything about it, um, have you noticed that agricultural standpoints have changed over the past few years?
definitely. Agriculture is actually the biggest sector here in Moldova. Moldova is considered an agricultural country. Its economy is based mostly on agriculture, which is a characteristic of poorer countries. I probably should have mentioned before, but Moldova is one of the poorest, if not the poorest countries in Europe. And yeah, agriculture is definitely reliant on water sources. And if those are decreasing, they're getting more polluted, then it's definitely a problem. Especially this summer, we've had major heat waves, uh, similar to the ones seen across the whole Europe. We have temperatures of 40 degrees Celsius. Uh, yeah, that's kind of a lot. And it's not that it's a lot. Maybe for some countries it's not unusual, but the thing is that for Moldova, that's pretty unusual. Like the most we would get before is like 35 degrees Celsius. And that's 5 degrees Celsius might not seem like a lot, but the population will definitely disagree. We've definitely felt its effects. Um, it hasn't been one and it hasn't been an easy summer this summer, and it definitely didn't help agriculture.
Wow, that's very interesting to hear. And it's cool to hear how even though Moldova is facing like hotter and hotter temperatures, people are still very hesitant to act on climate. I think I've seen similar things in the United States where we're seeing really, really hot temperatures, but because of like political will and these struggles, it's hard for there to be any climate action. So I understand that you're a prominent climate activist. You've done a lot of work in the field, and to ask how you think climate change has impacted water resources in Moldova recently.
Yeah, definitely. So these rising temperatures have contributed to the droughts. They definitely have. And as I've mentioned before, the agricultural sector is so reliant on water. And it's been tough. Yeah. Um, I'm sorry, could you repeat the last part of your question?
Yeah, how do you think climate change has directly impacted water resources or how people approach water?
Yeah. Okay. Um, it's not like it's a very clear to see issue. People don't feel like they should use less water, but there have been campaigns also funded by the European Union that I've been a part of that like promote using less water. So there's more water for the places that actually really need it, the places that need to consume a lot of water given the current infrastructure. That's also kind of disadvantage of being as poor as Moldova is. We can't quickly adapt to newer technologies. We can't buy newer stuff that will improve, that will make us more sustainable. Yeah, it's really hard to make any meaningful progress. We just have, in most cases, we have to do with what we have.
I definitely voice those concerns as well. Do you think that because of the recent situations with both like political wars going on, it has exacerbated like local climate impacts in the region? Like, for example, are some people facing, like some marginalized communities facing more water stress because of recent current events?
Um, Honestly, that's not happening as of now. It's just the heat waves have definitely increased water usage here. They've definitely increased, and it's uh, it's a limited resource. So yeah, that's kind of yeah.
Right. So knowing that your main issue is like a broad climate issue, like heat waves, that it's hard for any individual to solve, what would you say to a young environmentalist who wants to get into this field, maybe from Moldova, someone who wants to get into this field but isn't sure how to start?
Well, they can start by getting into my organization. I will guide them, Youth Climate Action Team Moldova. But I really recommend if you're just starting to get into volunteering, I recommend going into something more general. Like you can join a local student council or like some youth organization, and then you can pick your niche to be that of environment and climate change. That's at least how I did it, and it worked out for me.
Great. One final question. I want to ask, what do you think would be most beneficial to your community in Moldova to fight the heat waves? Do you think it would require environmental policy or integration with the EU, or would it be most beneficial to have some sort of local alleviation, like a new waterbed or recharging the aquifer, something like that?
There have been some solutions implemented by the local authorities here. Like during the peak of the heat waves, they had water around the city so people wouldn't faint from the heat because it was really that bad. And there have been some cases, like it's probably not the most extreme cases in the whole world, like compared if we were to compare, but it's still pretty unusual for Moldova, and it's probably gonna get worse and worse.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. You're an amazing person, and it's so nice to learn from you.
Thank you, Joey.